Good afternoon. Oh, it's loud, huh? Is that about right? Okay. All right. I'm Adam Wagshal with Moffatt and Nichol, and I'm going to present on the Humboldt Harbor Offshore Wind Energy Port Infrastructure Opportunities Assessment. This is funded by the County of Humboldt and the Samoa Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, EIFD. The purpose of the study is to assess Humboldt Harbor's opportunities for port facilities to support offshore wind energy development, and also to inform the Samoa Peninsula EIFD regarding infrastructure priorities for funding. So as we've heard about a lot today, there's a high demand right now for California port infrastructure to support offshore wind development, particularly in light of the state's goal to develop 25 gigawatts of offshore wind energy by 2045. The need for port infrastructure development is described well in the AB 525 Port Readiness Plan, which points out the need in the state for 12 sites for manufacturing of wind turbine generator WTG components. I'm going to use that term WTG. That's the full unit, foundation, tower, nacelle, and blades that gets towed out of the ports into the ocean to generate power, so WTGs. The report also calls for 3 to 5 sites to integrate those components into complete WTGs. 9 to 16 sites for operations and maintenance support and berthing of service operating vessels, and up to 100 acres for mooring line, anchor, and electrical cable laydown. So that's a lot of new infrastructure that needs to be developed to support the offshore wind energy industry. And Humboldt Bay has key attributes, features to do that. First off, as we've heard, Humboldt Bay is located, or the Humboldt wind energy area is directly offshore of Humboldt Bay. Morro Bay is in Central California and also reachable and serviceable from Humboldt Bay. And then there's other wind energy areas being proposed in southern and central Oregon. Humboldt Bay also has a deep federal navigation channel necessary for these facilities. And it has no bridge that the WTGs have to pass under between the port and the ocean, such as in San Francisco Bay, where the Golden Gate Bridge would prohibit, for example, the integration of the WTGs. Humboldt Bay also has a lot of underutilized industrial lands, particularly lands that are previously used by the wood product industry, which are now sitting vacant and can be repurposed for ports. So we looked at basically 5 different port use types to see where in Humboldt Bay they could occur. For this presentation, I categorized them as heavy uses and light uses. The heavy uses are the WTG large component manufacturing of the foundations, towers, nacelles, and blades. The other heavy use is the staging and integration of those WTGs, putting those components all together. And then light uses, manufacturing smaller components, operations and maintenance support, and mooring and cable laydown. When looking around the bay, we assess these in connection with channel depth necessary for the vessels, distance between the channel and the wharfs that have to be built for this, or existing docks. This is important because you need space between the federal navigation channel and the wharf for vessel movement, but also temporary staging of the foundations and other components and the WTGs themselves. Landside available area, available waterfront area, and compatible zoning. And as I present this, you'll see one of the real controlling factors for the heavier uses is deep channels and what I mentioned, that distance between the navigation channel and the wharfs. So our first cut, we just pulled out all the areas adjacent to the federal navigation channel because that's necessary for these uses. And then we excluded the area by the entrance there owned by the US Coast Guard and the King Salmon Community and Beach because these uses wouldn't be consistent with what they're doing there. So I'm just going to quickly run through the results. I'll go back for a second. So with that, we broke it into 3 sub-areas: the Samoa sub-area, Eureka sub-area, and Fields Landing sub-area. Quickly run through our results using those criteria for Samoa. 38-foot navigation channel, so that's compatible with all the different use types. Long distance between the federal navigation channel and land and potential wharfs, so also suitable for all the different use types. Industrial coastal dependent zoning, which is consistent with the use. There can have to be some modifications to zoning to accommodate some things, but at a high level, consistent with the use, and a lot of land to potentially do it. And then there's available waterfront area. There's existing docks that could be likely used for the lighter uses. The heavier uses have to be purpose built. But a lot of existing infrastructure, including Zerling and Zerling Marine Services, which is a critical haul out and servicing facility for vessels. That'll be important. And then it's been mentioned, and Chris is going to talk about this more, but there's the Humboldt Bay Harbor District has an existing project where they're designing and permitting 2 integration sites and a foundation assembly site. Eureka sub-area, some of the channel depth is 38, so there's some potential there, but it drops down to 35 and 26 feet. However, the distance between the channel and potential wharfs and land is not adequate for the heavier uses. There is compatible zoning and upland space. And then there are similarly existing docks, that some which would be adequate for the lighter uses. Fields Landing, the shallowest channel, 26 feet deep, suitable for the lighter uses, but not the heavier uses. Only a small area between the channel and shore or wharfs. So good for lighter uses, not the heavier uses. And a good amount of upland space available and consistent zoning similar to the other areas. And also waterfront area where there's some existing docks that need to be assessed and probably, fixed up, but then also open area for new docks or rebuilding of existing docks. And of course, the Harbor District's Fields Landing Travel Lift Dock, which is also going to be essential as a haul out and servicing facility for vessels. So the results, so the Samoa is the green area. All the uses are compatible there. The yellow, the Fields Landing and Eureka sub areas, all of the lighter uses are compatible there. Small component manufacturing, operations and maintenance and laydown. Of course, there's the Eureka Small Boat Basin and Woodley Island Marina, which will be important for transferring crew likely off to the offshore areas. And then we also look at the airports too, which need further assessment, but obviously that's a part of the infrastructure needs as well. So this is important, looking at the highest and best uses. That last slide showed all the uses that could occur in each area. However, particularly for the Samoa sub area, that's the only area where the staging and integration of the WTGs and large component manufacturing can occur. So because there's scarce areas where that can occur, you wouldn't want to displace those areas with the lighter uses of O&M and laydown that can happen in other areas. That's not to say that O&M and laydown can't happen there. It's just a consideration, right, to go towards the highest and best use. In Eureka, largely due to the limited distance between the channel and the berth, limited area of deep channel, likely limited to the lighter uses, and similarly Fields Landing also due to the channel depth and short distance between the channel and the berths would be limited to the lighter uses. In the report, we also discussed some of the priorities for infrastructure to support this type of development, particularly on the Samoa Channel. Improvements to the energy grid are important to establish redundancy and more power for those heavier uses. There needs to be further assessment done for the other sub areas. The navigation channel is talked about in the few of the earlier talks that there's still uncertainty regarding the technologies for the foundations and other components of the WTGs. We think that the current federal navigation channel may be adequate for 15 to 20 megawatt WTGs to be moved from the port out into the ocean, but we think it definitely needs to be looked at closer, and particularly depending on the technology used, and as the sizes of the WTGs might get larger, a high priority is to assess the federal navigation channel and see if there's need for modification. And then again, for the lighter uses, some of the existing docks in the bay may be adequate, But for the heavier uses, there's a really high weight bearing capacity need that none of the docks would meet. So there's need for new wharfs for the integration and staging of the WTGs.